Hi guys, how are you? How's the day coming along? My day is coming along really well and I'm glad to God. Even the desire of all of us is that we will give birth to children who will grow without any problems as far as their development is concerned. But this doesn't seem to be the case at all times. And today I want to talk about a very important condition, what we refer to as autism. It is important as a parent to know the signs of autism so that you can pick it early in a child and have the right intervention instituted early enough to help this child cope well in the world that we are living. What is autism? Medically, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. That means there are parts of your brain that get affected in one way or another, and the child tends to have deficits in some areas. But simply, autism is a condition that presents with impairment in communication, social interactions, and behaviors of a child. Now, I'm going to give you the signs of this disease according to a very important thing which we call the DSM-5. This is a diagnostic manual that we use in diagnosing many psychiatric conditions, but I'm going to present it very simply in a way that you can understand and pick it up if your child has it. Now, there are two major categories of the signs that a child with autism may have. So we have number one, impairment in communication and social interactions. And then number two, we have a child presenting with restricted or repetitive patterns of behavior. So I want to start with the first one, which is impairment in communication and social interactions. What are some of the things that you can pick up in a child that will show an impairment in either communication or social interactions? So number one, children with autism tend to have a delay in the development of language. Normally, by the age of 2 years, you expect that a child will be able to use around 50 words. By the age of 3 years, you expect that a child will be able to at least take 2 words put together and form shorter sentences. But you see, the case might be different for a child who has autism because we have a delay in the development of language. The second thing we have is that these children find it difficult to initiate social interaction, even to maintain social interaction. And an example of this is that if you give a toy to a child who doesn't have autism, they will want to involve you. As the child is playing with the toy and you're seated next to the child, he or she will take the toy, show it to you, you give it back to the child. In case there is a problem with the toy, he'll give it back to you. But see, that is not the case. That might not be the case for a child who has autism. So you'll give this child a toy and you'll sit there, but it's like you don't exist because you exist because the child cannot create and maintain that social interaction. And then the third thing that is there is that children with autism find it difficult to imitate other people's behavior. If I have a 3-year-old niece or a 3-year-old daughter and the daughter sees me applying lipstick, you see, the automatic response is that the child will want that lipstick and will try to do the same thing. And now you see, but for a child who has autism, it's very hard that they will see you doing something and try to imitate what you're doing. And then the fourth thing, unimpaired communication and social interactions, is that children with autism tend to find it really difficult to use nonverbal cues that are very important in social interaction. Examples of this is maintaining eye contact. It might be very hard for a child who has autism to actually just try and maintain that eye contact with you. It's like it's difficult, okay? And even as they grow up into being adults, it becomes a difficult thing. Another thing is that there is that difficulty in using gestures. As a child speaks, at times they tend to use gestures with what they're saying, like, Mama, I am hungry. But see, that might not be the case with a child who has autism. And then also facial expression. They may really, we have reduced use of facial expressions or responding to facial expressions. If you have a 3-year-old child and you're happy, you're smiling, and this child doesn't have autism, then you see it's an automatic response that the child will smile back at you and will show expressions. Or if the child is happy, you can easily pick that up from the face. But that could be a problem in a child with autism. And then the final thing under impaired communication and social interactions is what we call reduced or absence of joint attention. What do I mean by joint attention? If I have a child who does not have any developmental issues and I point my finger at the child, child and I try to point towards something, the response from the child is that this child will follow my finger or follow my gaze. But you see, this might not be the issue with a child who has autism. They will find it they will really not follow your finger as you point towards something. So guys, those are signs under impaired communication and social interaction. The second major category of signs that a child with autism can have, according to what you call the DSM-5, is what referred to as repetitive restricted patterns of behavior. So just from the name, children will have some patterns of behavior that are repetitive restricted patterns of behavior. And so the first example is what we refer to as simple motor stereotypes. What are some of the things, what will a child do in case of simple motor stereotypes? So you might find that a child with autism loves to flap their hands. So constantly they might be this way or moving fingers really vigorously, and mostly they'll tend to do this when they're excited or when they are nervous. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is that these children tend to have repetitive use of objects. Probably they just love spinning coins around, or if they have a toy, they just want to spin the wheel of the toy, or they want to line up toys. They are constantly lining up toys, and they don't want you to interfere with that order. And then the third thing is that these children tend to have repetitive speech. What I mean by this is that this child can hear someone speak and immediately they'll start imitating what the person is saying, but not that they can make out a meaning of whatever that person is saying. So they tend to have repetitive speeches. They tend to have repetitive use of specific words, and they're constantly repeating specific words or specific phrases or specific sentences. And then another thing that children with autism have is that they have these excessive adherence to routines, to rules. There's just a way in which they want things to be. If you're used to packaging food for your child in a specific way and you don't do it that way, then you cause a lot of distress in this child. Maybe they're used to just sitting in a particular place at a specific time or using a certain route when they're coming from school, and they just want to use that route. And then another thing with children with autism, you might find this college, they tend to have this fixated interest to an object, and this interest that they have might actually just be of abnormal intensity. You might find that your child is just preoccupied with a washing machine that is in your house, and the child is just attached to that washing machine, or the child is just preoccupied maybe to a fridge that you have in the house or a vacuum cleaner, and they're just attached to that that vacuum cleaner or that machine. That tends to be the case for children with autism. And then another thing is that they tend to have this excessive or reduced response to sensory inputs, things like smell, sound. You might actually call a child, maybe the child is called Victoria, but the child will not respond. But the moment the child hears probably the sound, a specific sound coming from somewhere, and they really respond quickly. So they have a hyper responsiveness to some sensory inputs. But the funny thing is that at times they actually may just be indifferent to sensory inputs like pain, heat, or cold. So that is under repetitive patterns of behavior that you can actually pick out in your child. And then other associated features that can be there in a child with autism is that they can have other motor deficits, and how this child will present. You might just find your child walking tiptoeing. That's how the child is walking, tiptoeing. And then you might also find this child doing things that cause self-injury, either just head banging. So the things I've said are the things that you can pick up in your child. And if you pick any of those things, then please take your child early to a doctor or to a child psychologist or psychiatrist, and let intervention be instituted early to help your child. So guys, I hope with what I have said, you will not find it difficult picking up some of the things that point towards autism, and your child will get help. There are parents who've had children with autism, there are parents who have children with autism, and they have been able to support them. And I pray that if you have a child with autism, may God continue giving you the grace and the patience to support them, and may God bless them. Thank you so much, guys. Continue subscribing to this channel. If you have any comments or any addition, please feel free to do so. And if there is a topic you would love me to focus on, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.